When it comes to reading, I understand that your books share personal experiences, other Satanist experiences, at least from what I've read, Satanist nonfiction. But you're saying research. So I can't help but to think of paganism. Mm-hmm. And so there was originally paganism, and then there was a whole branch of we don't know what it is. And then there's neo-paganism that isn't really pulling from any books that happened back here. Is that the case with Satanism? How far back are we going? I saw that 1700s France was maybe sort of the beginning of this stuff, but how far back does the study go?
You're going to get widely varying answers to that question depending on who you ask, because it was set down in one of my books that one of the first things you do is become comfortable with creating your own pantheon. So maybe your pantheon is only Satan, or it is any other entity that you've been able to make a connection with and decide that you are going to incorporate them in your spiritual practice. And as Satanists, we are capable of doing that with anything. So we can stick with, entities that are from Goetic texts that would originate in 17th century France. I believe that is the earliest side of things. But then you have people who pull from Norse traditions and Egyptian traditions. And, there are the whole Olympic gods, and then you have planetaries. And I mean, if you want to break it down to egregores, you can have people that are literally worshiping the spaghetti monster as part of their pantheon. And satanically speaking, ethically, you couldn't argue with them because they're doing their own thing. That doesn't mean you have to validate it and say, oh, yeah, spaghetti monster, that's awesome. Yeah, I totally believe in him too. But ethically speaking, that's totally their right to do, and they get to create their own pantheon and do their own thing. So
would you say that like 1700s and before it gets interpretive, but from 1700s on, that sort of reading that one should be reading? Or
I think it's all pretty interpretive, because for the most part, when you're talking that time period, you're literally talking about Goetia and the different demon hierarchies that were concocted, and you can study for a long, long time, getting into each one and the associations and what they represent, what you can do, and how to call them, and all these different things. And again, it's still at the end of the day, whether or not you as the person were able to actually make that connection. And this is a problem with occult practice in general, is people a lot of times want recipe magic. They want it to be one part this and two parts that, and I'm mixed together, and bingo bango, I have a physical manifestation of a God in front of me that I can ask, lottery numbers from. And, that's what my spiritual practice is all about. And things they aren't that simple, and you need to leave room in for your own psychological BS that you can be clouding everything with. And there's interpretation in all of it. And I mean, as a Satanist, as somebody who tries to come from it from a really pure standpoint, I have to leave it in the realm of possibility that everything that I've experienced is in my own head. So if that is the case, then, even the things that you're researching that other people came up with before, it still could maybe just be in your head. You have to, be very willing to question all of these things. Otherwise, you're going to it's going to be way too easy for you to be misled, whether it's by somebody else or even just yourself. So whether it's Egyptian stuff, whether it's Greek, whether it's Goetia, anything that you're choosing to bring into that pantheon, it's always going to be whether or not you have created a connection with that, and you feel a real connection with it. And people oftentimes, they try to force things where I think if you're not feeling it, you should just maybe try to move on and find something that you are, more associated with.
Yeah.